introduce the candidates for the benefit of the public.
Yes, Your Honor. This is a continuation of the public panel interview of candidates for the position of Supreme Court Chief Justice of the Philippines. Your Honors, the candidates for this afternoon are the following: Justice Andres B. Reyes Jr. and Justice Estela M. PERLAS-BERNABE. Interviewees, may I request you to please rise and raise your right hand so that I can administer the oath. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this public panel interview by the Judicial and Bar Council? So help you God. May I request Justice PERLAS-BERNABE to stay in the holding room while the interview of Justice Reyes is being conducted.
Justice Reyes, good afternoon. The first interviewer will be Judge De Monteverde. Judge De Monte.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Justice.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
By next year, May, you will be retiring from the Judiciary.
Yes, Your Honor.
And assuming that you will be appointed as the next Chief Justice, you will merely have about 1 year.
Yes, Your Honor.
And considering the short span of time that you will have, can you give us a picture of what the future of the judiciary be like under your term?
I would like to think that maybe the judiciary under my tenure can be a game changer. Can be a game changer in the development of our country by trying to be an active part in development by means of really disposing of his cases and delivering justice swiftly to the people.
Now, what will your actions be in improving our courts when it comes to the enhancement of our facilities?
For our facilities, when I was, if I may, when I was presiding justice of the Court of Appeals, I managed it with one of several theories, and one of them is the broken windows policy.
And kindly explain to that what that means.
The broken windows policy was practiced in New York City, and from the theory is that if a neighborhood or a building is filled with dirt, broken windows, garbage, graffiti, and all the dirt you could see from a neglected area, and you clean it up, the crime rate will go down. So in the Court of Appeals, I started the broken windows policy by making sure that most of the buildings were painted, the comfort rooms were clean, there was no broken window, there was no unlighted or not functioning bulb. So this gave them a feeling that there's something doing good in the office, and this reflection or this philosophy went down to the mindset of the workers in the Court of Appeals, as well as the justices of the Court of Appeals.
Insofar as dispensing speedy justice, how will you enhance its efficiency?
Again, if I may recount my struggles in the Court of Appeals. When I came in, we had to first identify all our database by having a database of all our pending cases. This took several months. And then when we had a database, I identified the 1,000 oldest cases for Cagayan de Oro Station, the 1,000 oldest cases in Cebu, and the 2,000 oldest cases in Manila. And we discussed this with my fellow justices, and we strive to finish this. And when we finished the first 1,000 oldest cases, what we did was we proceeded to the idea that perhaps we can finish all our cases within the 12-month period allowed by us by Supreme Court to decide the case, because we are given the deadline of 12 months to decide the case after submission after it is submitted for decision. So the next process was that it was to be finished within 12 months from date of submission. And then afterwards, the third part of the idea of declogging the court was that we would try to finish the cases within the 12 months it was filed. So if you're a party and you file a case in January of 2019, we were striving to achieve perhaps finishing the case entirely by decision within that year 2019. So these are parameters that you just have to go slowly. In the meantime, you develop a work ethic which will be followed by those coming into the Court of Appeals. So it is a good mechanism, because once it starts rolling, it's hard to avoid, because we also had transparency in the court. We publish by the internet our cases. You could go to a kiosk in Cebu City or Cagayan de Oro in Manila, and you can look in our kiosk by a touchscreen mechanism. You could see your cases, if pending or not.
Thank you. Now, it has been said that continuous trial is one of the means of reducing backlog of cases. What is your take on this? And if so, will you continue implementing this practice?
Yes, Your Honor, maybe I'll continue that, because I was an MDC judge, I was an RTC judge. So I would know that the delay causes so much inconvenience to the judge and to the parties. By a continuous trial, you are strict with the appearance of the witnesses, and the lawyers make sure that they have the witnesses ready on that day.
But with the continuous trial, would you think that the other cases being handled by a certain judge would be affected?
Your Honor, it would depend really on the number of cases that the judge has, because a continuous trial might involve a long litigation because of the issues involved, and the number of the witnesses, and perhaps also the studiousness of the opposing party to really ask all questions pertinent to his cause. So it would depend on the caseload also. So it's ideal really for new courts, but for existing courts with backlogs, I would not really say, because I have no first-hand information on that.
Well, I have many friends in the judiciary who opted for an optional retirement because of this continuous trial. It has somewhat affected their health.
Yes, Your Honor, because...
Have you taken this into consideration?
Yes, Your Honor, because when you serve in the judiciary and you get older, you are not that healthy as when you were a young judge. So, and the trial would apply to all judges, whether they're been old or young.
Thank you. Now, are you familiar with this Raffi tool for action program?
No, Your Honor. I don't watch.
It is said that the Raffi Tool for Action program violates due process because complainants go to him and over the air present their problems.
But Your Honor, they are not a court, so they don't have
Yes,
to
yes.
observe due process. That is their way of justice on TV. So I don't think they're aware of the nuances of due process.
So what is your opinion on this?
It might cause a party who's innocent to be crucified on television, and he might already be pronounced guilty by the public when he has not aired his side of the story.
Okay. Now, assuming that you again will be appointed as Chief Justice, how would you repurpose to have greater autonomy over the size and disbursements control over the judiciary budget?
Well, Your Honor, I have some accounting sub-units in college, and I already handle the Court of Appeals in its accounting. So I make sure that all the expenses are duly supported by receipts, and I make sure that we adhere to the bidding process as mandated by the bidding law, so that we do not violate any. And we make sure, in fact, we have a year-end meeting with the COA to address whatever problems that was appeared during the year, whether there was a lack of coordination with the COA, or whether there was a lack of some papers or some lack of some numbers that were needed by the COA. Because at the end of the year, the COA will give a COA report, and they will tell you if you are COA compliant or not. So I guess in the Supreme Court, we must strive to be compliant with the COA rules and regulations.
Okay. Of course, you will be introducing some reforms, principally for the betterment of the judiciary and to the staff as well. Now, in terms of reforms, what court reforms would you, Your Honor, prioritize as
Well,
Chief Justice?
my priority is really to have a database for all courts in the Philippines, RTC and MTC, have them housed in one place in Manila, so that personally I and my colleagues in the MBank can monitor these cases. And personally, every day I have to monitor these cases. As I said earlier, I will try to look at the 1,000 oldest cases in the RTC and MTC and see how they're supposed to be done. Then, of course, this needs a functioning computer system. So I would suggest that we borrow the system of the Court of Appeals and have it lent to the Supreme Court, because I feel that it's a very workable system, tried and tested. And of course, we will monitor not only the cases and their decision, but we will monitor also the MRs and the entry of judgment. Then we will have another monitor just for cases that involves drug cases, cases that involve detention prisoners, then another monitor for cases wherein you have public works projects, and also so that we can monitor that there are TROs issued, then another case for family courts. So actually what we meant by reform is more monitoring on our part. I also have the idea that perhaps because of the traffic situation, we can amend the rules so that we can receive the filing of cases or pleadings up to 9 o'clock in the evening because of the traffic situation. Other than that, looking at the idea that all the courts will finish all their cases within the time limit prescribed by the rules of court, as well as perhaps the ideal dream of any court system that the case filed today will be finished within several months from the filing. I think that's what we can really do.
Okay, let's go to another subject. And you must be aware of the perception, public's perception, that there is justice for sale. How will you address this?
Well, I urge the public to come out and complain. We cannot do much if we just act on hearsay talk or hearsay rumor. I would really ask them to come and complain. But if I become the head of this judiciary, I'll be going around the country. I'll be talking to the judges, talking to the court personnel, and perhaps also to the litigants and lawyers. One of my management methods is management by walking around. As in, previously I was presiding justice, I would go to Cagayan de Oro once a month or twice a month, as well as Cebu. So I have to go around. I have to go around every Thursday and Friday and talk to the people, talk to the judges, talk to the sheriffs, talk to the stenographers, and perhaps I get the grasp of what's happening down there in the RTC MTC. And I would encourage people to just not talk, but really file a complaint so that we can have a case and we can, after they're found guilty, we can suspend them or remove them from service.
Okay, thank you. What is your opinion about the propriety of judges accepting allowances or financial support from LGUs for their court salas offices?
Well,
It is a fact that LGUs are helping financially the courts to furnish them, to take care of their supplies.
Yes, Your Honor. I was an MTC judge, and my office, we had 3 employees coming from the City Hall of Makati, and in RTC, I had only one from the provincial government. At that time, the judiciary was really had a very small budget. But I feel that there's nothing wrong with cooperation between the local government and the judiciary when it comes to providing supplies to these offices. What we need is that we try to give justice to the people by having these cases heard every day.
Last question. The failure to act upon applications for survivorship benefits of the spouses of deceased judges and justices by the Supreme Court en banc was one of the issues deliberated upon during the impeachment case of then Chief Justice Sereno. As of today, how do the en banc calendar for discussion or prioritize this matter? And if appointed as next Chief Justice, how do you see to it that this matter be expedited?
Your Honors, please. For me, it should be, when I was presiding justice, these petitions had to bear my signature for approval before it is sent to the Supreme Court. And it spent only 1 hour in my table, even 5 minutes. But then it is brought to the Supreme Court, it's processed. The documents are checked again as to the paperwork, and then it is brought to, raffled to a ponente, and the ponente would recommend. So there's a process there. There's a raffle and there's a ponente. And then the ponente would submit his recommendations to the en banc. I don't see any delay in that part.
But that was one of the reasons that Chief Justice Sereno was impeached. There were many complaints about failure to deliver the benefits within a reasonable period of time.
Yes, Your Honor, there was some delay because what happened with the RTC and the MDC, the money for the benefits of the widows from the Supreme Court, there's enough funds. In the Court of Appeals, we didn't have enough funds to service the widows. So we had to wait for a disbursement from Congress. The law was signed in 2009, and the money was just appropriated around 2013 or 14.
Okay.
So they were also complaining to me, and they were telling me how come I am not approving this. And I told them that I should have nothing to do because there's no money and we cannot disburse money if there's no disbursement with us. In fact, I told them my mother is also a survivor and has not availed of it because there's no money available.
Okay, thank you, Justice Reyes, and
Thank you po.
good
Salamat
luck.
po. Thank
Good
you
luck.
po.
Thank you very much, Judge Montebet. Justice Tiham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon,
Good afternoon, Justice.
Your Honor. You will be staying in the court for the remaining 8 months, more or less.
Yes, Your Honor.
What concrete reforms do you intend to implement within the next 4 months? And what other concrete reforms will you implement before the end of your term as Chief Justice?
Well, one reform is really needed is really a good working computer system for the Court of Appeals, as well as for the RTC.
Is this
FDC.
something that can be finished in 4 months or 8 months?
It can be installed, I think, within the year, and maybe it would need a month or so to populate the data. But once you populate the data, you can already start talking to the judges and asking them about the status of these cases.
I know for a fact that when you were presiding justice of the Court of Appeals, you were inclined to give more benefits to court employees. Will you be adopting the same kind of attitude in the Supreme Court if you are Chief Justice?
I think, Your Honor, that our salary right now for the judges is more than enough. I think we are enjoying the highest salary ever in the history of the judiciary. So I'm not inclined to increase their salary of course, the salary scale is mandated by Congress, but unless there's really extraordinary inflation, like 20%, 30%, and it erodes the purchasing power of the salaries. But I'm not inclined to say that their salaries are inadequate. In fact, when I was a judge, my salary was only 5,000. It was very low, and I could not live on it. But now, a judge could live on his salary.
What
But
about
regarding, Your Honor, maybe the employees that I can file, maybe there's a need to address their salary. I would be talking to them and asking them if their salary is enough for them. Because I know some of them are receiving only 10,000 or 12,000. So you have to figure out how they could survive on a salary of 12,000 or 15,000. But Your Honor, please, once the judiciary addresses its cases and improves its delivery of justice, I always told that to the Court of Appeals, I'm sure that the President or the Executive and Congress will see the wisdom of giving us more salary or more benefits, because justice, the delivery of justice, is an important part of society.
As a member of the court, are you satisfied with the pace of case disposition in the country? Do you think the public is happy how decisions are decided by the Supreme Court?
I have no idea about the public's perception of the Supreme Court.
But is it important to understand
Yes, Your
the
Honor.
expectations of the public?
Yes, Your Honor. I was always of the theory that justice delayed is justice denied. And I think it will be the foundation of my reforms, so to it that there is no delay. And if there is delay, it is reasonable delay, and delay that can be explained to the litigants.
All Chief Justices have promised reforms. But you and I understand that the mindset of people in the Supreme Court is more on preserving, more on the conservative side, more of preserving what is traditional, more on not fixing anything if it's not broken. And coupled with the fact that the court can only move in a collegial manner, even if you have noble ideas of implementing reforms, are you confident that you will be able to implement the reforms you envision within the time frame of 8 months, considering that you have to get the clearance of the majority of the en banc?
I understand, Your Honor, that this is an en banc matter, and I would need the vote of the en banc as well as the authority. But I think if I would talk to a judge individually, those judges with huge caseloads, I think it's not wrong if I talk to them individually and try to tell them, ask them, and work with them as how we can address their problems. And if it's only a matter of asking for an extra judge to help him out, then I would go to the en banc and tell them this is the problem here, this is the problem there. And perhaps the en banc would now realize that these things could be done. So I must just show the effort to the en banc that there's a passion on my part to help the country by reforming our system of delivery of justice. And hopefully I can convince them that I am truthful and earnest in my efforts to deliver. And hopefully they will ride with me and go on this journey to help and deliver justice to our citizens.
It's a quest for hope on the part of the en banc. Anyway, should Chief Justices be held accountable for promises they have failed to deliver?
Yes, Your Honor.
Many Chief Justices have promised declogging the dockets, but up to now the dockets are not declogged. There's still a bottleneck and this has been going on since time immemorial. Now, let me go to something more specific. The JBC is tasked to vet applicants to the judiciary. It is not a hollow objective, it's a real, concrete objective. As chairman of the JBC, if you're appointed as Chief Justice, would you be willing to work for budgetary allocation for the JBC so that we can expand our facilities as well as our vetting network so that we can come out with better screening process of applicants for the judiciary?
Yes, Your Honor. I've been there before. I was presiding judge of the Court of Appeals, and I worked with Secretary Jokno, and I worked with Secretary Abad. And they are reasonable people as long as you show them that there is sincerity on the part of the institution, and you explain to them what is needed, and when they feel that you are sincere in pursuing reforms, in my case, in the Court of Appeals, I had an upward trend in our appropriations in the Court of Appeals.
You have many friends in government. You have many friends in the private sector. You have many friends in the business sector. Is this not detrimental to your judicial independence?
No, Your Honor, because my other principle in life is honesty is the best policy. And I can only show my face to people if I'm honest. I don't think I can show my face to people if I'm a dishonest person.
But when you deal with the private sector, when you deal with government, when you deal with the business sector, and you want something from them for the judiciary, for the good of the country, isn't it expected that something in return has to be given to them? And that would in fact impair judicial independence.
No, Your Honor, because the Secretary of the Budget at that time, he was also looking for his president to improve the governance at that time. Both secretaries I talked to wanted to improve governance, and they wanted to deliver the reforms to the public. So they felt that perhaps giving some allocation, more allocation to the Court of Appeals was part of their good governance.
You are now number 8 in the seniority list, or number 7?
I think 7, Your Honor.
Number 7.
Yes, Your Honor.
You think you have moral ascendancy over the first 6, that you can easily persuade them, if you are the Chief Justice, to pursue the reforms you would like to pursue?
Well, I hope that as a better reforms, they will try to listen to me and understand my reforms that I will try to implement. And I hope that they do not look at the personality but at the reforms.
Based on
but-
our experience and observation in the court, they are independent-minded.
Yes, Your Honor, but some of them, like Justice Bernabe, was my colleague in the Court of Appeals. And I was in the court 1987. I've been in the MTC, so I guess I can impart to them, I think I can talk to them and impart to them the urgency of really trying to help our country, because we have been languishing. Our cases are languishing, our country is languishing. We have a good GDP of 7 to 6%, but hopefully continues. But still, we could go to 10, 12%. And we need to work hard. We need to work hard for our citizens, for our country.
One of the high-profile cases you penned, and I was privileged to concur because I was still in the court, was your decision in the case of Genuino versus De Lima. Can you just tell us briefly the significance of that decision?
Yes, Your Honor, because the Constitution is supposed to protect the rights of our citizens. And one of those rights under our Bill of Rights is the right to travel. And the right to travel cannot be limited or prohibited unless allowed the DOJ is unconstitutional.
There is a observation on the part of many lawyers that confidential records on internal deliberation are leaked to the public even before the decisions are officially promulgated to the public. How would you address it as Chief Justice?
Well, that's very hard to determine who of you is the one leaking out. On my part, I don't bring a cell phone to the en banc session. I have not been bringing any cell phone, so in case
But Justice, is it appropriate for the official court spokesperson to announce to the public, and it's very efficient, Attorney Hosaga is a very efficient spokesperson, but is it appropriate to announce to the public a decision, even if the decision has not yet been signed and circulated and promulgated?
well, Your Honor, maybe his announcement is that the court has reached a decision, but maybe
But
has not yet promulgated.
you and I know that even if a decision has been reached, a member of the court, even before he signs it, can change his mind and can change his vote.
Yes, perhaps on my part, gauging from your ideas, Your Honor, maybe I will refrain from making announcements until it is signed already.
Are you an innovator, Your Honor?
No, Your Honor.
You want to maintain the status quo?
No, Your Honor, I would like to improve a lot of things. As I said, one of my management principles was broken windows. And when there's a broken window, you have to change the window.
As Chief Justice, would you be talking to the media to discuss matters of public and national interest, just like Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpia?
No, Your Honor, I would like to just keep quiet.
Is there anything improper about the actuation of Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpia?
I would not know, Your Honor, but I will not talk on any subject at all. I might talk about the backlog of the court, asking the public to help, perhaps on that matter, but not on issues that are not part of court reforms.
My last question is on mental health. Is mental health of judges important?
Yes, Your Honor. Mental health is important. I think that's part of...
How does the court monitor the mental health of incumbent judges?
I have not seen any monitoring
So
of
if-
the mental health.
If judges are acting normal, so you can assume that there's nothing wrong with them mentally.
Yes, Your Honor.
So the
unless-
court will be merely reactionary. It's when somebody complains that you will investigate that there is something wrong with that incumbent judge.
Yes, Your Honor. Hardly even in private companies do they have a regular mental test after being hired.
But the Constitution speaks of judges being in service during their term of good behavior. Does good behavior include not only intellectual competence, but mental competence?
Maybe perhaps, Your Honor, following your trend of thought, perhaps the court can hire psychiatrists and they would visit all the judges.
If an
and-
incumbent judge is mentally unstable, do you think that judge should be removed from office as a threat
I
to society?
I would defer, Your Honor, to the medical pronouncement.
And if it is affirmed by the medical experts that there's something wrong with the judge? Do you think he should be removed from office?
Maybe perhaps, Your Honor, we could retire him, Your Honor.
Lawyers are under the Supreme Court.
Yes, Your Honor.
They are considered to be officers of the court. Do lawyers understand that concept? That they're officers of the court?
Your Honor, yes, Your Honor.
So between their clients and the court, to whom do they owe paramount loyalty?
They should owe their loyalty to the rule of law, to the rules of
No,
court.
between the client and the court, to whom do you think they should owe paramount loyalty?
Your Honor, he has to walk a fine line between his client and the court. But he must make sure that he is following all the tenets that's demanded of him by the court.
So neither? Is that what you're saying?
No, Your Honor, I said that he must comply with all the requirements meted out by the...
So why call him an officer of the court if his loyalty is clear-cut?
I'm saying that he can be loyal to both, Your Honor.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much, Justice Judge Ilaw.
Thank you, Justice Mendoza. Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon po,
Judge
Justice.
Reyes.
Good
How are you
afternoon.
today?
I'm all right, sir.
Okay. All right, from among the candidates for the Chief Justice, you top of my list with 15 administrative cases. The last one, impeachment filed by Edsel Lagman et al. On September 23, 2018, although it was dismissed. Starting again with libel filed by Reynaldo Maniwang. And you'd been admonished for the gross ignorance of the law filed by a certain Mildred Goko Koko Tan on 1998 for imposing an erroneous penalty and for taking more than 3 years from filing of the information and 6 months to prepare and promulgate a decision in a bigamy case. Are these cases the reflection of your work ethics starting as a magistrate?
No, Your Honor. Those cases were late because the parties were not residents of San Mateo. So at that time, San Mateo, it would take 3 hours to reach that part of Rizal. So trial was held only every 3 months or 4 months. And we only had a physical twice a week, Your Honor. And in this case, there was also an attempt on the part of the spouses to settle. So it took some time for them to finish their presentation of the evidence because on my part, that since they were married, I told them, all right, if you want to settle, we can postpone, Your Honor.
By the way, who prepared your PDS or the personal data sheet? Do you have your PDS there?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, who prepared your PDS? Were you the ones?
My secretary, Your Honor.
All right, it states here that your height is 60 meters. Is this correct? About 200 feet?
Your Honor, it says 5'8", Your Honor.
5'8", but in meters, you stated 60.
Yes, Your Honor, there.
60.203. Is that correct?
Your Honor, it is maybe perhaps a computation error. Maybe it was computed on a cell phone, and the translation was wrong, Your Honor. I apologize for the mistake, Your Honor.
All right. Likewise, on the page 6 of your PDS, ask for your bank deposits, but you merely stated the banks and left the amounts blank. Why?
Your Honor, I think I gave the amounts in another sheet of paper, Your Honor. But maybe I can write a letter tomorrow. I know that my PDS coincides with my bank statements.
All right. Now, we have just interviewed you for Chief Justice last year. Are there any notable changes in your qualifications since your last interview? Remember, we had touched even your private lives.
Yes, Your Honor.
Any changes?
No, Your Honor, I'm now a senior member of the court. I am now number 7. I think last year I was number 14 or number 13. And I learned to love more this court than ever before. I'm enjoying my work now as a member of the court, and I look forward to every day for the embank and for our division deliberations. I now feel the importance of really working hard because here in the Supreme Court, unlike in the Court of Appeals, I have 900 cases assigned to me. In the Court of Appeals, I had 800 when I came in, but now I'm still in the, so there's a lot of work, Your Honor, here.
All right. How do you fare with your colleagues in the court during the time of deliberation? Do you go prepared?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you participate actively and intelligently?
Yes, Your Honor. Sometimes I ask questions, sometimes I don't ask questions. If they're just unsigned resolutions, I just look at it, and if there's if I see that it's all right, I don't anymore make any comments on the work of my other colleagues.
All right. What do you think are the necessary skills that a Chief Justice must possess?
I think on my part, for my experience, again, one of my principles in life is honesty is the best policy. So you have to be honest in all your dealings with your colleagues. Then you must have a good heart, and you must show them that you are sincere. And of course, you must show them that you are a hard worker. If in case you become a Chief Justice, you have to be at the office at 8 and leave even beyond 5 o'clock. I think hard work will give a good impression on them, and then doing all your best and giving out the best decisions will also perhaps earn their respect.
All right. Do you agree that the magistrate should not only be adept in administrative work, but as well as in adjudication?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what is your caseload at present?
My caseload is 900, Your Honor. But I have decided 1,115 cases for an average of 55 cases disposed a month. That is as of June 30, Your Honor.
So your average monthly disposition is 60.83 from the 928 caseload.
I think it's 55 only, Your Honor.
Alright, going to your ITR and silent, I could not quite balance your ITR and SAL-N. Because the SAL-N started in, you submitted to this council for record that in 2007 you have 22,596,800. 2008 you have 28 million. 2009, 28. And in 2017, 5,699,621. 2018, 2,918,6359. Could you enlighten the council as to where you bring your earnings that your net worth keeps on going down each year despite your earnings going up?
Yes, Your Honor, because I already have been annulled, my marriage, so we have not settled our property relations, so I don't anymore accumulate wealth. I just spend it on my children, and if I have some money, I give it to them, Your Honors. In fact, maybe this year I'll be donating my property to my children.
You seem to be sociable and well-connected because you belong to a family of businessmen
Yes, Your Honor.
with your business associates, friends. Are you aware of the canon of the new Code of Judicial Conduct, which states that magistrates should not only be free from inappropriate connections with and influenced by the executive and legislative branches of the government? If these people or people around you, business associates, would ask favors, how would you handle it?
I always tell them, Your Honor, that I cannot help them because I told them that it's not my thing to really accommodate people for favors in the court. Especially when I was presiding justice, I really avoided these favors because I don't want to talk to another justice.
Again, what are your plans for the court?
Yes, Your Honor, as I said, my immediate plans is really to have an inventory of all the cases of the court as well as the RTC and RTC and look at the oldest cases of the court and try to reach a program wherein we can have them decided as soon as possible. I think the presence of all cases is the number one problem of the Supreme Court. And since we have some old cases, I feel it is hard for a Chief Justice to be able to ask the lower courts to perform if it itself has some old cases. So for me, the first thing to be done, if we have to have some credibility to gain respect from the lower courts, is that we have to have a serious second look at the old cases that are plaguing the Supreme Court, Your Honor. Then there's a lot of reforms, maybe additional members for the court administrator, as I said, monitoring of cases on a daily basis on my part personally, and I'll talk to the judges personally, and I would visit them every Thursday and Friday. I would be going around to all the areas of the country because there's a need to be there and touch base with our judges there. Being an MDC judge before, I would know how they feel, and I know that they are happy when they are visited by somebody from the Supreme Court.
And again, how about for the JBC, if and when you're appointed as the Chief Justice?
For the JBC, I'm happy with the performance of the JBC. It is presided and complemented by honorable members of the Judiciary, retired. And I'll do my best to divert some of the money earmarked for the Supreme Court to the JBC.
Why do you say you're happy?
I'm happy, Your Honor, because I like the aura of today's proceedings, Your Honor.
Happy because do you feel comfortable there with us here?
Yes, Your Honor, because I can see the smiles of Justice Mendoza. So I'm comforted by their smiles. And
About my smile?
yes, Your Honor, but I could not tell you because you're the one asking the question. Your Honor.
Okay. All right. If I were to poll everyone you have worked with, what percentage will not be a fan of yours?
I hope none, Your Honor. I hope none, Your Honor.
And how do people in the court describe you, good and bad?
Well, when I was in the Court of Appeals, my door was always open to my colleagues. They can see me anytime up to 5, and I am always there to listen to them and act on their request. And also the employees, my door was always open to them. And I told them, if you cannot see me or you're ashamed of talking to me, you can talk to your department head, and the department head can tell me your concerns. I think that there's a need to connect, especially to the lowly employees who are at the bottom rank of the what you call this scale of employees. And the more I have to treat them with love and respect, because if you treat people with love and respect, more or less it will come back to you.
How about bad ones?
Your Honor, you just have to be of humility. For me, a bad one could be present in an organization, but I just have to forget him and not worry about him and continue towards the goals of the office. I will not stop the office for just one person.
All right, could you think of 5 other uses for a stapler other than stapling?
Yes, Your Honor. It's a paperweight, Your Honor.
Okay, what? Paperweight?
It could be for your shoes.
For shoes?
Yeah, call that shoehorn, Your Honor.
Shoehorn, yes, 3.
It could be
For self-defense.
self-defense, Your Honor.
All right, and last one?
Could be a hammer, Your Honor.
A hammer, yes. All right, my last question will be like this. If you were stranded in a deserted island, but all your basic needs are taken care of, what 3 items would you want to have with you? Justice?
3 items.
Yes.
I just would like only an opening for a can opener, and that's one, and the canned goods.
Good.
Yeah. And
And
water, Your
last-
Honor.
About your Am I correct to say that you're wearing a toupee? And you're going to forget that?
No comment, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much, Justice, and good luck again.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Judge Ilaw. Good afternoon, Justice. How many years did you stay in the Court of Appeals?
Yeah, I think almost 17 years or 18 years.
17 years. And you came to the Supreme Court, what year?
2017, Your Honor.
Years ago. When you came to the Supreme Court, did you find any broken window?
No comment, Your Honor. No comment, Your Honor.
No, you will be, you're aspiring to be their leader.
Yes, I saw a lot of things that could be painted over or...
Not physical. I'm reading your broken windows.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. As I said,
It's a metaphor according to you.
I feel that the computer system of the Court of Appeals is superior to that of the Supreme Court. But the Court of Appeals computer system is also not adequate for lack of funds. That we don't have a window for MR and we don't have a window for entry of judgment. And perhaps we have to have those windows so that we can monitor if there are pending MRs or pending requests for entry of judgments as well as execution.
Anyway, should you be appointed the Chief Justice, you can address those problems.
Yes, Your Honor, but of course, always with the embank, Your Honor.
Of course, of course. Oh. In what case in which you were the ponente, did you demonstrate your judicial philosophy? What is your justification for your judicial philosophy in that ponencia of yours?
Well, in that potential of mine, I would say that that was just a original interpretation of the Constitution, that we have a Bill of Rights, and that if there is no law, then the DOJ could not issue, could not bar people from leaving our country.
That was in the Genuino case? On
Yes, Your Honor.
De Lima versus...
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And what's your judicial philosophy there, in which you...
Well, my philosophy on that part is just a plain reading of the Constitution, which is textual in nature, or as they say, an originalist, or as they would say, a exercise of judicial restraint, because we don't interpret the Constitution more than what it means, Your Honor.
For which ponencia would you think you could be acknowledged for your intellectual leadership? The last two questions were sent in by one of your colleagues.
Well, I had a concurring opinion in the LEB case, Your Honor.
LGBT.
The law school.
LEB. LEB case.
Yes, Your Honor.
The PhilSat.
Yes.
Yes.
In that case, during the oral arguments, I showed the trend to the court that other than a student who wants to be a lawyer, there are people who just wants to be a student of law. They don't want to be a lawyer, but they just want to go to law school and study the law. And I said that we are barking on the wrong tree if we're talking about allowing people not to enter law school because of an exam. When a person just wants to go to law school to be a student of the law. So I said there is a misplaced emphasis on the student who wants to be a lawyer. So during the oral arguments, I brought that up, that there are two facets to education. One is just to study the law,
Your
or maybe
views were adopted by the ponente?
what's
Your views were adopted by the ponente?
Yes, Your Honor. But I also had my own concurring opinion to emphasize that we should allow access to education because people may just want to study. They don't want to pass. They just want to study. They just want to go to medical school to study. They don't want to be a doctor. So why should we bar them from going to law school and enrolling? Anyway, it's their own time. It's their own money.
From the writings which you submitted to us, it appears that you are conservative. Are you a conservative?
Well, Your Honor, I was looking at the Constitution and there is the word divine providence. So I would like to have a interpretation of our laws and of our country's purpose is that we have to be guided by divine providence. So in line with that, perhaps I could be called a conservative because I would adhere to Judeo-Christian values of family and honor and honesty and respect for all people, respect for your neighbors, respect for the property rights of the other, living in peace with your neighbors, not stealing. I would go for those all traditional values.
How about with respect to the rules? Are you liberal or strict?
Your Honor, the rules can, there is a theory that the Constitution should be interpreted as its text would mean. And there's the other theory that a Constitution is a living document and should be adjudged on the basis of contemporary society. So that we have
So
to
you
judge
believe in the
a
living-
action based on the society now.
You're a believer of the living constitution.
Your Honor,
Be a judicial activist.
it would be
Just following up your answer.
yes, Your Honor. You could be an activist and also be an exercising judicial restraint, because our Constitution, unlike the U.S. Constitution, has two systems involved in it. One is capitalism, one is socialism. So we have to be activists on one part or be unrestrained on the other part.
From our records, it appears that you did not agree with the ponente in the case of the PAL employees. Can you explain your dissent?
Yes, Your Honor, because under our rules, a second MR cannot be entertained, and once a judgment is final, it is final, and it would have to be in the embark before we do it again. So I went with the minority, Your Honor.
In your view, you joined the minority because of a technicality.
Yes, Your Honor.
How about on the merits of the case? What was your position?
On the merits of the case, Your Honor, it would appear that PAL really suffered some losses, Your Honor. But as mentioned in some forum, we need to filter the work of the Supreme Court. And the filtering is that second MRs are not allowed. Otherwise, the court will be burdened with a lot of cases on a second MR and third MR. And I think in this case, the MR has to be addressed to the clerk of court, and the clerk of court could recommend dismissal. But in the PAL case, if I remember correctly, it was just a piece of paper that was the object of the reconsideration. So this was going around the filtering mechanism of the Supreme Court.
Do you mean it was not a pleading that initiated
It
the
was,
third motion for
it was
reconsideration?
just a letter, Your Honor.
Some members of the cabinet have expressed the belief that in times of emergency, the Constitution can be suspended in favor of executive power. Do you agree? And can you give the reason for your answer?
Your Honor,
This
the power
was
must,
also sent by one of your colleagues.
the power must be delegated by Congress to the President to exercise emergency powers, Your Honor.
So you agree that the Constitution can be suspended?
No, Your Honor,
I will repeat the question. Some members of the cabinet have expressed the belief that in times of emergency, the Constitution can be suspended in favor of executive power. Do you agree?
no, Your Honor.
Can you explain why?
Because, Your Honor, if you suspend the Constitution, it would be something like martial law. But in martial law, Congress still exists. So if you suspend the Constitution, there'll be no Congress. So it does not follow. So if you suspend the Constitution, you suspend Congress, what are you suspending? There is no more government. There is practically a change of government, Your Honor.
Earlier, you mentioned that because of the traffic, you want that the filing time for pleadings be extended up to 9 o'clock. Is that correct? Did I hear you right?
I would suggest, Your Honor.
Okay.
But
are you
I
in
don't know if that
favor-
is-
Are you in favor of a 4-day work week for the judiciary with extended hours?
No, Your Honor. No, Your Honor.
Can you state your reason?
It would not look nice if we have, maybe I will still look at the case load of the judiciary, but at this point in time, we have a lot of cases, and for us now to have 4 days of work week, will look so unpopular to the public, Your Honor. I think the court should function 5 days a week.
Okay. When you were appointed to the Supreme Court, what was your caseload?
I think, Your Honor, the initial case load was 666.
666.
Yes, Your Honor. Then
Now-
after 2 months, they was unloaded another 300. So it became 900, Your Honor.
900.
Yes, sir.
So presently you have 900.
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you finish that before you retire?
I think so, Your Honor, because by February, I would have no more raffle of cases. So
Because of that.
yes, maybe, because I will not be receiving any more any cases. So from February to March, I will be working on those cases with me, and perhaps I can finish half of them, and from now up to December, we could still work.
I ask you that because in the JBC there is a proposal. It's still a proposal, but it has passed the Execom that for the Supreme Court they should be able to work for at least 2 years. Do you agree with that? Because you are now in the Supreme Court. Do you agree with that view that they could work for at least 2 years And the JBC will at the time of the application with the JBC, has 2.5 years more to go. What is your view on that? You will be, should you be appointed as the Chief Justice, you will be the chairman of the JBC. What is your view?
I will ask the committee, and if that is your collective decision, I'll join the collective decision of the JBC regular members.
What is your personal view? Because you will be our chairman.
Yes, Your Honor. My personal view is that it is laudable.
In view of your experience in the Supreme Court.
Yes, Your Honor. It's laudable and has a good noble purpose, and I would agree with it.
What rules in the internal rules of the JBC would you propose to improve or to be amended?
There is none, Your Honor. As said, I've dealt with the JBC all these years, and I never complained, and I always said that it's all right.
Time is almost up. I'll give you this opportunity to say what you want to say, pursuant to your aspiration of a Chief Justice.
Yes, Your Honor, I am a career worker in the Judiciary from MTC to RTC, Court of Appeals, presiding justice, and now associate justice of the Supreme Court. I thank the JBC for this opportunity, and I thank you for your kind questions. And this will be my last interview for a judicial position. But I know that I have another interview, the interview up there. And I would like to tell those people when I interviewed that I have served with honesty and truthfulness and fairness, and I have obeyed God's law in that last interview that I will have. Thank you, Your Honors.
Thank you very much, Justice. You are excused.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Honor, and good luck. The last candidate to be interviewed, Your Honors, is the Honorable Estela M. PERLAS-BERNABE, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court.
Good afternoon, Justice Bernabe.
Good afternoon, Your Honors.
You will be first interviewed by Judge De Monteverde. Judge
All right.
De Monteverde.
Thank you, Justice Mendoza. Good afternoon, Justice PERLAS-BERNABE.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
How long have you been with the Supreme Court?
With the Supreme Court, Your Honor, 8 years.
8 years, Supreme Court. About in the Court of Appeals?
Court of Appeals, about 7 years.
So all told, including that, those services in the lower courts, how many years?
23 years, Your Honor.
23?
23.
Okay. Thank you. Please tell us your caseload as of July 31, 2019.
I have 266 judicial cases, Your Honor.
Okay, and monthly disposition of cases, how many?
Around, I don't have any backlog anymore, so it's just around 40 to 50.
14 to 15, okay. Thank you for that information. Okay, I'll go straight to the next question. With you as the next Chief Justice, what will be the future of the judiciary be like?
Well,
What will the future of the judiciary be like?
Well, it would conform to my vision, Your Honor, of having a unified judiciary geared towards judicial efficiency and integrity.
Okay, integrity. Now, during our interview for lower court judges, it was mentioned by some interviewees that there is a scarcity of stenographers serving in the lower courts, and according to them, this largely contributed to the backlog of cases. As the next Chief Justice, how will you address this problem in order to avoid accumulation of more cases in the lower courts?
Well, Your Honor, actually, they're now in the process of hiring contractual stenographers, and I think this will really help unclog the dockets of this court. And I think the reason why so many stenographers are retiring or getting out of the office was basically because of the continuous trial of cases where there's so much loaded with having to transcribe stenographic notes.
Or is it because of the fact that the pay scale with regards to stenographers are quite low?
Probably, Your Honor, but I think they charge certain fees for every stenographic notes that they make.
Aside from what they are being paid for by
Yes,
the
Your
Supreme
Honor.
Court.
But I think it's more of the usually heavy load of work that they are getting out of the government.
Now, in general, what is your plan to fill up the sizable vacancies for stenographers, legal researcher, records officer, property officers, and so forth in courts around the country?
Well, Your Honor, we just have to post applications on the website and campaign for more, well, probably we can also upgrade their salaries to make it more attractive. And we can go on campaigning and putting them on website, the hiring of our court stenographers and other court employees.
Now, during the term of Chief Justice Sereno, there were many complaints in so far as the retirement pays of the justices are concerned. What is your take on this, assuming that you will be the next Chief Justice?
Well, Your
How
Honor,
will you implement the speedy and hastening of the benefits that will be accorded to the retired judges or the retired justices?
actually, Your Honor, the benefits are now being taken care of more speedily because the applications for survivorship go through the court and does not pass anymore through any committee, unlike before during the time of Chief Justice Sereno. So I think it's going faster now because the applications are directly filed with the court. And, well, probably
Which court is that?
the Supreme Court, Your Honor. And probably if there are some, if there's a need to streamline the process, then we could just coordinate with the Office of the Court Administrator.
Now, I asked this question earlier this morning, but I will ask it again of you. Since 2016, it was recorded that at least 35 lawyers, judges, and prosecutors were killed in the line of duty. The Philippine Judges Association sought the creation of a martial system in the aftermath of these recorded killings, and according to them, establishing special marshals under the supervision of the Supreme Court may help prevent further killings. Do you think this is a good solution to the problem?
Well, Your Honor, I think there should just be well, first of all, Your Honor, I do not know the reasons really why they're being killed, because there must be a reason for it. But I think we really have to guard the security of all the judges, especially the ones who are handling cases involving drugs and other heinous crimes. So I would opt more for probably more security to them than the martial officers.
You will be opting for a security in favor of?
The ones who feel that they are in danger, Your Honor.
Including judges and justices?
Yes, Your Honor.
But you are not in favor of the special marshals?
Well, I do not know, Your Honor, how much expenses will be incurred to have these special marshals. But I can check on the possibilities of this program or plan of action.
So again, it's on the financial aspect that you are
Yes, Your Honor, because there are
quite
many...
hesitant in agreeing to the establishment of the special marshal.
There are many projects and plans, Your Honor, that we can think of, but sometimes it's the budgetary and logistical concerns that would bar us from really getting into the bottom of all this.
Okay. Now, recently, the facilities in our courts have been enhanced. As Chief Justice, what will be your actions in improving further our courts?
Well, Your Honor, actually we have a budget already for infrastructure, and we're really moving on towards really establishing courts because they will expedite the disposition of cases if you have a good working condition. So I think we're up to that. We're asking Congress to really put a budget for all our infrastructures.
Any other thing?
Well, probably, Your Honor, we can also ask the local governments to support infrastructure projects and then donate them to us. Right now, we are receiving donations on land and also on buildings, Your Honor.
Now, insofar as dispensation of speedy justice, how will you enhance its efficiency?
Well, Your Honor, we really have a problem on the congestion of cases, and I think if I were to become Chief Justice, I would prioritize the crafting of the implementing rules on the Judges at Large Act, as well as the full implementation of the Family Courts Act, because right now we have only implemented the first tranche of the Family Courts Act, and there's so many designated family court judges who are hindered from performing general adjudication cases, general jurisdiction cases. And probably the decongestion can also be solved by, of course, working on the computerization program, which is somehow long-term, but, well, I will support the move to really the creation of the electronic courts to make it more efficient, such that the Office of the Chief Justice and the Office of the Court Administrator would have access to the management system of the courts. And then I can also push PhilJA to have a website that would contain the training materials that were used during the training, especially for specialized courts like the special commercial courts and the family courts. It's going to be per court classification. And another thing is we can also codify the various rules of procedure contained in administrative issuances into ordinary rules of procedure for the guidance of the bench, the bar, and the public.
Thank you. Now let's go to the public's perception that there is a justice for sale. How will you address this problem? This impression, rather.
Well, Your Honor, I think everything plays when there is an opportunity, but this perception can be erased through visible results. a speedy disposition of cases, and for the courts to have a consistent rulings on cases.
Now, do you believe in this phrase, justice delayed is justice denied, can be attributable to the judge only?
Well, Your Honor, no. Everything is holistic. I mean, you have the pillars of the system, so it can be attributed to the lawyers, it can be attributed to the judge, to the counsels, and sometimes even to the litigants.
Now, I'll give you a scenario. When I was still practicing, I was still a judge. In our dockets there, we about 100 cases, 80 to 82% are criminal cases. And these are being increased daily with the disposition of several cases come in many new cases. So much so that this pile up and the dockets of the clerk increase. Now, the problem there in our place is that we had 14 RTCs in the whole of justice and 7 MTCCs courts, so 21 all in all. But we only had 11 prosecutors and about 9 public attorney's office. Instead of us hearing cases daily, we only hear criminal case once a week, and this continued and continued until it piled up. Now, under this scenario, will it be one of your programs to have a dialogue with the Department of Justice to have a full complement of a court, meaning that daily there must be a judge, a prosecutor, and a public attorney in order that these things may materialize? Your take, Justice.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the first thing I would do, if appointed, would really be to set dialogues with all the various stakeholders and the key officials of the institution. And the purpose of this dialogue is really to lay down the framework or the groundwork of my vision. I will seek their cooperation and ask them to actively participate in achieving my vision, thereby creating a culture of inclusivity and empowerment. So that is really the first thing that I would do. I will hear from them their problems, and I will give them also the groundwork of my vision in such a way that we can hear both sides and all sides of the problem and find a concrete solution to it.
Thank you, Justice. To be a truly independent and co-equal branch of the government, do you think that Supreme Court justices should be elected by the people?
I don't think so, Your Honor, because this profession is really very important in terms of public service and in terms of this is imbued with public interest. And I don't think they should be elected. I think they should really undergo a process which is being done by the JBC insofar as determining their integrity, competence, probity, and independence.
Now, we have been talking about reforms, and if appointed as Chief Justice, what court reform would Your Honor prioritize?
Well, Your Honor, I can divide my reforms into, in accordance with my vision. First, on the decongestion of dockets, I have said earlier that I will prioritize the implementing rules on the Judge at Large Act as well as the Family Courts Act. And I will seek a codification of all rules of procedure. Plus, I will also urge the PhilJA to create a template for courts not only for orders in the special commercial courts or other specialized courts, but also for decisions and resolutions of the lower court judges. And would you like to hear also, Your
Yeah.
Honor, about
Go ahead, please.
insofar as corruption and accountability, I will also activate the Judicial Integrity Board so that complaints against judges, other court personnel, as well as including court administrators, can be heard by them, can be investigated. And likewise, I would also seek the creation of the Committee on Ethics and Ethical Standards of the Supreme Court so that we ourselves can really go through investigation for cases involving graft and corruption and other violations of the ethical standards.
Thank you, Justice PERLAS-BERNABE.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That was my last question, and good luck.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Judge De Monteverde. Justice Tiham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Chief.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
I address you as Chief because when I was still in the court, you were my senior. And the word Chief is music to one's ears. Thank you for waiting for about an hour and a half at the Dignitaries Lounge. So I'll ask you an easy question first. What is the Murillo Velarde map which you saw inside the Dignitary Lounge?
Well, Your Honor, it's I'm not too well-versed on this map, but I know
It was a Christmas gift given by Senior Associate Justice Tony Carpio last year to all members of the court.
Well, I know, Your Honor, but it pictures there the West Philippine Sea, the Scarborough Shoal, and the exclusive economic zones, the nautical miles where the Philippines can claim sovereignty and sovereign rights.
We in the JBC have decided that whenever we interview applicants for judgeship, if they were not paying attention at the Dignitary Lounge and could not explain what the Murillo Velarde map is, we will not shortlist them.
Your Honor, we were held in at the library.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Let's talk about judicial independence. Your son works in Malacanang in the office of the Executive Secretary. But in some cases filed before the Supreme Court, you voted against the government. So it's either there were no influence exerted upon you, or if there were, you were impervious to such influence. Do you feel conflicted when you make decisions which may ultimately run against the interest of government?
No, Your Honor, because my son and I are governed by the separation of powers doctrine, he in the executive and I myself in the judicial.
You dissented in the majority decision in the petition for quo warranto petition filed by the Solicitor General Calida. But in your dissent, you did not say that the then Chief Justice was totally blameless. You were just saying that it was the wrong mode. It should have been impeachment. You also dissented in the decision relating to the extension of martial law and things like this.
No, Your Honor, I did not dissent in the extension of the martial law.
Oh, you concurred?
I concurred.
Oh, I
yes,
see.
Your Honor.
My mistake. All right. Talking about the Murillo Velarde map given by Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio, if you are Chief Justice, would you be comfortable talking to media about matters of which you feel are matters of national interest or paramount importance?
No, Your Honor, because my first duty is to the court, being a justice, and therefore I would feel uncomfortable speaking about issues like that because these issues might come to court, and it's a ways that I'll not be able to really voice out my opinion on cases like this.
Of a Chief Justice is enormous. Are you even aware of a judicial bureaucracy? The judiciary is the third branch of government. So you have the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. I have not seen in the premises of the Supreme Court a map of the judiciary. Or even if there is, it could be a map, a network of courts distributed. So you have the first and second level courts, you have the third level courts, appellate courts, and then the Supreme Court. More or less, there are 1,888 judges in the first and second level, and 2014 in the Supreme Court, 15 in the Supreme Court, 59 in the Court of Appeals, 21 in the Sandigan Bayan, 9 in the Court of Tax Appeals. It is important for a Chief Justice to take hold of this mammoth organization. How can you effectively monitor this vast organization, taking into account that the Office of the Court Administrator is only composed of a few people? As Chief Justice, how can you effectively monitor the performance?
Your Honor, that's going to be my first plan of action. I can monitor one station through the executive judges. I can also monitor other stations through the OCA, the Office of the Court Administrator, but since right now they're really undermanned, then I have to push through with the computerization because it's only through the computerization project that I will be able to monitor the performance of each judge in terms of their case disposition, case management, and caseload.
But judges is only one part of the spectrum. The other part are the lawyers, which are also under the Supreme Court.
Yes, Your Honor.
Because the Supreme Court grants the license to lawyers to practice law. But the question is, who police the ranks of the lawyers? The IBP cannot effectively police the ranks of the lawyers. Some lawyers don't even attend IBP activities. Some lawyers don't even pay their IBP dues. So how do you intend as Chief Justice to monitor lawyers as well? Because knowing that if lawyers misbehave and judges misbehave as well, then the judicial system will fall.
Your Honor, one of the computerization projects is the lawyer information system, wherein you can determine from there the good standing of the lawyers, the penalties that were imposed on them, and whether or not they are still in active practice or not. So probably this could really be of help. Plus, of course, well, the IBP can do a little help also, Your Honor.
With the signing into law of the judges at large, mandating the hiring of 100 RTC judges and 50 MTC judges, as Chief Justice, is it your intention to fully commission all of this, judges at large?
Your Honor, the first thing I would do is to coordinate with the Office of the Court Administrator to determine where the judges are needed. So depending on the needs of the courts, then that's probably the time that we need to implement even partially the Judges at Large Act.
Former Vice President Binay wrote a letter to the Chief Justice, and we were furnished a copy. And he was complaining about the practice of some trial court judges in the arbitrary computation of the trouble bond computed at an amount equal to the alleged civil liability of the accused, or 200% of the bail bond, or in certain cases even higher, regardless of the personal circumstances of the accused. And he argues that this is discriminatory because some of the accused may not be well off. Is this something that can be attended to?
Well, Your
as
Honor, that's
Chief
really,
Justice?
well, that's really part of the access to justice. So I think we really have to study that because even in the filing of cases, there are those who are called indigents and exempt from the filing fees. So I think we should also consider the status of these convicts when it comes to securing bail bonds.
Many members of the court have retired last year and this year. In your opinion, is it permissible for the court to revisit or even overturn decisions previously adopted by the court when the ponente and majority of those who concurred have already retired?
Well, Your Honor, overturning jurisprudence is really based on the merits of the case. We just don't overturn jurisprudence if they are really founded by law and the previous jurisprudence. But the problem is when this jurisprudence has no more factual basis because of the realities of the times, then it should really be abandoned and overturned.
In your PDS, it is stated that you attended several training programs, both in the Philippines and in abroad. And on 2 occasions, we were together in certain conventions. In 2019, you went to Russia for a conference. 2018, Singapore, France, and Argentina. In 2017, Italy, Thailand, in the United Kingdom, to cite a few. If appointed as Chief Justice, will you continue to participate in these conferences and training programs?
No more, Your Honor. I think there's a lot of work to do here. I don't think I could really travel anymore because of the administrative and adjudicative functions of the Supreme Court Chief Justice.
As Chief Justice,
Except, of course, Your Honor, on very important occasions that a Chief Justice presence is required.
as Chief Justice, are you willing to rationalize availability of attendance in international conferences and training program to deserving judges nationwide? Make it available to them.
Yes, Your Honor. In fact, as chairman of the Subcommittee on Commercial Courts, as well as the Family Courts and Juvenile Concerns, I have been asking some of the lower court judges to really attend these conferences.
But should preference be given to those who are outstanding judges? Because if they're outstanding, they're already trained. Or should it be given to those who may not have outstanding performances because they have less training?
Well, Your Honor, the last time I was asked to designate 5 judges to attend the Women Judges Conference and other Women Judges Conference. I drew by lot the selection of these judges.
I asked this question to the other applicant. In Bali, Indonesia, there's a proposed law to ban and penalize premarital sex. If that kind of a law is adopted in the Philippines and a petition reaches the Supreme Court, in your opinion, and by way of academic discussion only, theoretically, would you consider that law constitutional or unconstitutional? A law that would ban premarital sex, not amounting to prostitution or something else?
Well, Your Honor, as of now, I don't think there is really a prohibition in our law and in the Constitution. And it may be argued that to restrict that or to render it unconstitutional would infringe the right to liberty and freedom of expression.
What is your understanding of academic freedom?
Well, academic freedom, Your Honor, is freedom from interference insofar as academic institutions are concerned with respect to their goals and objectives. And of course, it may include the right to choose the subjects that they would want to teach, the people who will teach, and how they will be taught, including the right to admit students in their schools.
Does allowing students to go out to the streets to demonstrate and air grievances, legitimate grievances against the government, an exercise of academic freedom?
Well, the students, Your Honor,
Yes.
well, it's really a right to free expression. It's more of a freedom of expression, Your Honor, not the right of academic freedom, because academic freedom relates to school institutions, the institutions of education.
And corollary to that, can the school administrators penalize professors, teachers who allow their students to go out into the streets and demonstrate, to air legitimate grievance against the government
No,
as an
Your-
exercise of academic freedom? The school administrators sanctioning professors and teachers who allow their students to go out and demonstrate.
Your Honor, I don't think that would be included in the academic freedom of the schools.
And one final question. You are now number 4 in the seniority list.
Yes, Your Honor.
Whatever reforms you would like to implement will need the collective, collegial action of the bank. You feel you have moral ascendancy over the other members of the bank?
Definitely, Your Honor, I'm very collegial, and I think with proper justification, I don't think they will reject any proposal I will make.
Without mentioning names, what are your pet peeves in the court during court deliberation?
Meaning, Your Honor,
The things you hate during court deliberations, without mentioning names or people.
well, Your Honor, probably the senseless dissents and arguments which have no basis in law and jurisprudence.
Right, that's my last questions. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Justice Judge Ilaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your
Justice
Honor.
Estela Bernabe. We had interviewed you last year, and it was really extensive. And I will not ask questions previously asked this morning. You may have been given tip of what my questions are. So among the applicants for Chief Justice, you have the highest net worth at 55 million. Could you explain to the public the justification for such?
Well, Your Honor, I entered the Judiciary in 1996, and we had already accumulated a little wealth. My husband is engaged in business, and I was earning from private and government institutions since 1987, Your Honor, since 1977.
And our office received on November 26, 2018, your submission of the 2017 income tax returns.
Yes, Your Honor.
That is in compliance with our verbal request during the panel interview. Photocopies of the 2017 income tax returns of the corporations which you and your husband have financial interest, namely Starlight Express Travel, this Ericoil Incorporated. What's this Ericoil Incorporated? Engaged in what business?
In gasoline, Your Honor.
Gasoline. Erico International Trading Corporation. And this Berna Beach Resort, Inc. Where is this located?
In Nasugbu, Your Honor. In Nasugbu, Batangas.
Nasugbu, Batangas. How long you been staying at the Supreme Court as an associate justice?
8 years, Your Honor, since 2011.
And what do you consider your greatest accomplishment as such?
Well, Your Honor, there were rules on the Financial Rehabilitation and Insolvency Act, the financial liquidation and suspension proceedings, and the cybercrime rules that were issued under my chairmanship. And I have contributed jurisprudence, my ponentias in some landmark cases which have changed the landscape of jurisprudence towards strengthening the public stance on the court's stance on public accountability. Those were my contributions, Your Honor.
How about your most devastating failure, if any?
In the court, Your Honor, or in life?
Not in life. You like to mention about your private life? Your husband is here, Rick.
Well, Your Honor, actually, I have nothing, not really very devastating, except that sometimes you get frustrated with the decisions that are rendered by the court.
In what areas do you typically have the least patience at work?
Well, Your Honor, actually, I have a lot of patience, and I think that's one of my virtues.
Just because your husband is here?
He knows that for a fact, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. I know that you are the chairperson of this coming bar examinations.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you already prepared in giving the bar examinations?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm done with my questions in all the subjects.
All right. What if you are nominated and appointed as Chief Justice? What will be the effect being the chairperson with bar examinations?
Well, Your Honor, since I'm almost done with all the preparations, then I can concentrate on the adjudicative and administrative work of a Chief Justice.
We have here questions from the Court Appointments Watch in relation to the bar examinations. The question is, what is your proposed plan of action to ensure a reasonable bar examinations?
Well, Your Honor, first of all, I'm personally attending to all the questions in all the bar subjects. I have made the syllabus very concise, and directed all examinees to focus on the syllabus because I'm not going to ask questions beyond what is contained in the syllabus. Of course, Your Honor, I will protect this strict confidentiality of all the questions that I have.
Do you mean to say there were unreasonable bar examinations in the past?
Well, Your Honor, I actually, since 2011, this is the only time that the syllabus has been revised, and I made it really very brief and concise. I took away some topics which are not relevant and which I think are already obsolete. So I think that would give them the opportunity to focus on the syllabi of each subject.
Any tip? None, of course. But do you have any program on those who were not able to pass the bar exams?
On those who did not pass, Your Honor?
Yes, that, who unsuccessfully passed the bar exams
Well, Your Honor, I was
for so many years,
I was
so
one
many
of
take.
I was one of those responsible for striking out the 5 strike policy, so that even if you fail and fail and fail, then you are still qualified to take the exam, the bar exam, provided that you undergo a refresher course after 3 years.
As long as their bar exams.
Yes, Your Honor.
About this quasi-judicial bodies employing paralegal, those who are not yet members of the bar.
Then, Your Honor, they can qualify for that. In fact, those who did not pass the bar are hired as researchers and also as paralegal of law offices.
Now, aside from being the Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, what are your hobbies? What activities do you habitually engage in?
Well, Your Honor, I play golf once in a while. I watch movies. I travel. I'm always with my husband. Well, I attend social gatherings because that is a way of maintaining a healthy balance.
Any talent of yours you can share with us? Dancing, singing?
Well, I know a bit of dancing, Your Honor.
Dancing. Can you
Yes.
demonstrate? Your husband is here. Your DI. All right. You've been with the Supreme Court as Associate Justice, working along with how many males justices?
12, Your Honor. Now, presently, 12 justices in the court because there are 3 lady justices.
How many lady justices aside from you?
2, Your Honor.
2.
Justice
Are you sure?
Carandang and... Well, at least, Your Honor, insofar as the sex is concerned.
Excuse me. So what changes have you made in working with others to be more effective at work?
Well, Your Honor, every time a newcomer comes in, I try to tell them of my work habits, and I inform them that if you do not move fast enough, you will just wake up one day and have a heavy load of cases. I try to share with them my computer program on the inputs and outputs of cases, and anything that they would need, especially with respect to advices on cases, then I am always open.
And you previously mentioned about patients or impatience at work. And how do you handle a case being in a bad mood or difficult situation?
Well, Your Honor, I'm always on my feet. Even if I am sick and I am in a bad mood, I'm still able to carry out my duties.
Or what is the ritual that helps you calm down or be in a good mood, despite being in alleged bad mood?
Well, Your Honor, I just take a break once in a while and then get back on my feet, and I'm able to work again.
What do you wish you had done differently in your life?
Well, I would have wanted to be a doctor, Your Honor. Even when I was on my third year college, I wanted to shift to medicine. But because my parents didn't allow me to do so, then I had to just be a lawyer.
You graduated in St. Paul's, Manila,
Yes, Your Honor.
so you are a Paulinian,
Yes, Your Honor.
an alumnus along with Shawi, Sharon Cuneta.
Yes, Your Honor.
If you could be any character in fiction, whom would you be?
Probably a superwoman, Your Honor.
Superwoman, the counterpart of Superman, not Wonder Woman. Why do you
Well,
say so?
Anything that has wonders, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. That Justice Leonen is here. We have to acknowledge the presence of Justice Leonen. You would like to share with us any questions that you may course it to us? All right, thank you, and good luck again, Justice Bernabe.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Judge Ilaw. Well, since Justice Leonen is here, I will ask you some question which he proposed. In what case in which you were deponente did you demonstrate your judicial philosophy? And what is your justification for your judicial philosophy?
Well, Your Honor, I have so many cases where I reflected my judicial philosophy. And my judicial philosophy depends upon the uniqueness of each case. When the statute is clear and the intent reflected is in consonance with the intent of the lawmakers, then I interpret the law in accordance with what the statute says, in line with the separation of powers doctrine and in deference to the legislative process. And this I did in the cases of Po, Lamanzares, where I dissented, because to me, the Constitution does not include foundlings in the list of enumeration, and that it is also consistent with the principle of sanguinis, where you have to establish blood relation to your parent. And this was also reflected in the case of Delphine Lee, where I also concurred with Justice Luke Bersamin, because when I go over the elements of syndicated staffa and simple staffa, it is required that the money appropriated come from the general public. Now, when the law is not clear, well, in that case, then I am a bit of a textualist. But when the law is not clear and I have to uncover its intent, then the task of determining the intent would be based on reasons, logic, the practical impact on society, and sometimes even the practicality of the times. And this cases were reflected, this pragmatic approach is reflected in my ponentias in the PDAF case, and the PDAF case, which is the Bellica case, and also the Carpio Morales case, which is the condonation doctrine, where the previous jurisprudence were struck down because they did not have any legal foundation, notwithstanding that this jurisprudence had existed in the court for a long time.
Can you name cases where you dissented and your opinion was adopted by the majority?
I cannot recall anything, Your Honor, because almost all my decisions were unanimously voted upon.
I was asking about that because there was I'm speaking of a situation where there is
My dissent.
a
Yes, Your
ponente,
Honor. I
then you
recall.
dissented.
I recall now the probable cause issue of Senator Bong Revilla, where I dissented from Justice Velasco, and all the members of the court joined me.
What other cases?
I cannot recall, Your Honor.
Question sent. For which ponentia would you think you could be acknowledged for your intellectual leadership?
I would say, Your Honor, the Priority Development Fund case, the PDAF, as well as the Carpio Morales case on the condonation doctrine, because it took me a while to really, I had to research on both local and foreign materials to be able to come up with my conclusion overturning these doctrines which have been part of the jurisprudence for a long time. And for the condonation doctrine, I also had, well, it was a bit tricky because I had to apply the prospective application of the doctrine, considering that the jurisprudence previous one was a good law before its abandonment.
Should you be appointed as the Chief Justice, you will be automatically the chairman of the JBC. Do you have any reforms in mind? What rule in the internal rules of the JBC do you want to tweak or amend?
Well, actually, I have not scrutinized the rules of the JBC, Your Honor, but I do not know if you have a prohibition on getting associate justices of the Supreme Court, depending on the age of the applicant. Probably if, well, based on experience, probably if you have, we have to set a limit on the applicant getting also to the Supreme Court, because from experience, it takes a long time for a justice to really adapt to the work of the court. And therefore, if the justice is not going to work too hard, or it takes time for him to really adjust, then the docket that he will leave will just be so much and tremendous to be inherited by his successor.
So, would you agree with the proposal that an applicant or a candidate should serve for at least 2 years in the Supreme Court in view of your experience as an associate justice for 8 years?
Yes, Your Honor, because it takes a while really to adjust to the work of the court. Yeah, there are lots of readings and readings to do and decisions to make. And just for a justice to adjust will take about 3 to 6 months.
I heard you earlier on your comment on the stenographers, the problem of stenographers. When I was in the Health and Welfare Committee of the Supreme Court, the number one problem, or the number one utilization were the stenographers. How could you help them?
Well, Your Honor, probably because of the load of work now, especially because of the continuous trial, their salary should be upgraded as well as their rank.
That will require legislation.
Yes, Your Honor.
How about immediate remedy to help them? Not only in their work, but also in their physical health and well-being.
Well, Your Honor, we can provide probably for, well, they're covered by insurance, Your Honor. Probably we can adjust their pay through the stenographic notes charges that they charge.
I think my time is up. Well, I have several questions yet, but I'm giving you this opportunity to say what you want to say pursuant to your aspiration as a Chief Justice.
Well, Your Honor, the position of Chief Justice is not a position of superiority. It is just an opportunity to lead the judiciary. So whoever is appointed, I would like to request that he hears his constituents, the problems that they have, and remember that the collective effort is a key to success. And above all, I think he should always remember that he owes loyalty to the Constitution and the people.
Thank you very much, Justice Bernabe. That will be all. Your excuse.
Thank you, Your Honors.
Thank you and good luck, Your Honor, Justice PERLAS-BERNABE. That concludes today's public interview of candidates for the Chief Justice position. Thank you very much, Your Honors. On behalf of the Judicial and Bar Council, we would like to thank PTV4 for the free media coverage, as well as the other media networks, the PIO for the live streaming, the Maintenance Division, the security personnel, and the JBC staff for their kind assistance. Have a great day, everyone.